Okay, it's 7 o'clock. The first order of business we have this evening is a public hearing for the West Virginia Wesleyan College financing the bond issue. So I would like to call that public hearing meeting to order. Ask if there are any who wish to comment at this time. I hear no comments. Sure? Okay, then we've held our public hearing and we'll adjourn the public hearing. I now call the regular meeting of the Buchanan City Council to order. Asking you to join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We'll respect the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Wesleyan students this evening. Yeah, okay. It's our, you got a speech ready? We like to recognize the Wesleyan students. We ask you to stand, face the camera, give us your name, where you're from, and what your major is, please. Start back here.
My name is Inti. I'm from Brazil.
And what's your major?
My major is business and economics.
Please have it.
My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Neenah, Wisconsin, and I'm a business administration major.
I'm Ryan Osborne from Buchanan, and I'm a psychology. Sorry.
Is that it? Welcome. Thank you all for coming. Barry Pritz, West Virginia Wesleyan bond refinancing request.
Well, I'll just speak on behalf of the institution. This is a pretty straightforward kind of thing. What we're trying to do is save the institution some money by refinancing, given the current rates and the opportunity that we have to refinance debt, lower some of our payments over time. It would be fairly substantial. It's not a great savings, but it's an opportunity for us to be frugal, be responsible financially, and try to take advantage of the good opportunity that we have to refund some bond debt that we have. John Stump's here with me, and he's the bond counsel with Steptoe & Johnson representing the institution. If you'd like to.
Before you this evening, you have a resolution that authorizes the issuance of not to exceed $6,500,000 in aggregate principal amount of bonds of the city. Importantly, and as in the past, the city itself has absolutely no financial obligation on these bonds. The city is a conduit for this financing. We are simply refinancing existing debt that the city had issued in 2008 at a lower interest rate. So it's essentially like a home refinancing.
Greg Isaacs, business major, Charleston, West Virginia, 1980. The 2008 bonds were issued to renovate Fleming Hall, the Fleming door, and it results in preliminarily about $20,000 a year. So it's not enough to ignore.
I understand. Thank you. I would ask the council to, I'm going to reorder our agenda here just a little bit this evening. We have in G1, Resolution 2013-2 is the refinancing of the bond issue. I would ask to move that to present. Is there any guidance you'd give us there, Dave? Are we
Mayor,
ready for this?
I would note that on behalf of the city, I have reviewed this resolution and asked Mr. Stump to put it in our form, that is an enumerated form with signatures by all of the council members, and that has been done. The substance, as has been alluded to earlier by Dr. Pritz and John Stump and Greg Isaacs, there's no new indebtedness here. It's strictly a refinancing. We've done these kinds of things a host of times in my 30 years with the city, either for the college or St. Joseph's Hospital. I think everything's ready to go with it. I can read the resolution by caption if you'd like.
Please do so.
Bond authorizing resolution, resolution number 2013-02 of the Council of the City of Buchanan, authorizing and directing the refinancing of the City of Buchanan Commercial Development Revenue Bonds, West Virginia Wesleyan College Project, Series 2008A, tax exempt, authorizing and directing the issuance of not to exceed $6,500,000 aggregate principal amount of the City of Buchanan Commercial Development Refunding Revenue Bonds, West Virginia Wesleyan College Project, Series 2013A, bank qualified, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture, a loan agreement, a tax regulatory agreement, or tax and non-arbitrage certificate, an escrow agreement, and a bond purchase agreement for the bonds, authorizing and directing the execution and delivery of such bonds, providing parameters for establishing the principal amounts, provisions for redemption and maturity of and rates of interest on and other terms and provisions of such bonds, authorizing a loan of the proceeds of the bonds to West Virginia Wesleyan College pursuant to a loan agreement for the purpose of facilitating the refinancing of the loan by the city to the college of the proceeds of the Series 2008A bonds, requesting the trustee to authenticate such bonds, appointing a trustee, registrar, and paying agent for the bonds, authorizing the distribution of a preliminary official statement and an official statement, authorizing execution and delivery of other documents, and the taking of all other actions relating to such financing. And I don't know that we need to go through all the whereases. I think that's been explained by those who have already spoken on behalf of the college. It's my recommendation on behalf of the city that you approve this resolution this evening.
Entertain a motion to approve resolution
I would move that we-
2013-2.
Second. Move that we do that.
Motion made and seconded. And further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We require a roll call vote here, but we will require your signatures on the original. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. Then we can move ahead. Gentlemen, I know you have miles to travel, and I'll excuse you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Be safe, Barry. All right, same.
And we had a couple of college students sneak in. And you missed out on the party. So we ask you to stand where you are and face the camera and tell us your name and where you're from and what your major is, please.
Don't they get fined?
Well, that's up to their professor.
My name is Denisha Richardson. I'm from Houston, Texas, and my major is business administration.
My name is Madison Farmer. I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, and my major too is art and marketing.
Welcome.
We got a new reporter.
Yeah, we'd like to recognize this new reporter from the Intermountain. Swing down there and get it.
It is a rare face
Only
lately.
filling in one time, but I missed you guys.
Hello, Katie.
Hey, Dave.
We know Katie from years past. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, I just have updates for you all tonight. First is on the health insurance renewal update. I'm meeting next week with a representative from Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. They hope to have our 2013-14 employee health insurance renewal at that time. I will also be discussing some items that have been brought to our attention under the new Health Care Reform Act and how it impacts our part-time employees. Specifically, the Obamacare, if you will, act that was passed a few years ago, actually within its law, identifies full-time employees as anyone who has over 30 hours. That's a little different than what's been treated in the past. It's actually identifying, again, employees over 30 hours are considered full-time and would have to be provided insurance. So this is going to be something administratively, from a management standpoint with our department heads, that we're going to have to keep our eye on, that those employees, unfortunately to a certain extent, especially in peak times such as the summer and some of our part-time help at Stockard and we have with the street department, of keeping that under 30 hours. So it's going to be a little bit of a burden on our staff to take care of that, but we have to adhere to the law. We really can't have those employees going over and being considered full-time. The second item is our 2013-14 budget update. Just want to advise you that we did submit the approved budget for the 2013-14 general fund to the state auditor's office. On a side note, I'm pleased to announce that Buchanan was the first municipality to submit their budget, and that was approved by the auditor's office. The final step in this process will be to lay the property tax levy, which by law is held on the third Tuesday in April, which this year is April 16th. So I'm scheduling, by law, a special meeting of council for Tuesday, April 16th at 10 o'clock. I think that's noted in your calendar, but just putting you on notice of that. Tuesday, April 16th at 10 a.m. here at City Hall. It shouldn't take the 5 minutes. The next item is just a Brushy Fork Conference Center update. Various city officials, Steve Foster with the Upshur County Development Authority and Laura Meadows with the Upshur County CVB, representatives from the West Virginia Army National Guard and their legal counsel held a conference call last week to finalize some language in the lease agreement between the Building Commission, City of Buchanan, and the National Guard. Our city attorney, Dave McCauley, has drafted a new lease agreement based off of those conversations and submitted that to Guards Council, and we're waiting to hear back from that. That's necessary. It's the final document we need to actually close on the loan. It's still looking good for closing at the end of April, so we're just doing a little bit of housekeeping with that. The final item is the 2011 and 2012 audit of our financial statements. You all should have a copy of that. It's a little purple folder in your boxes. That was conducted by an independent audit, Teacher Bartlett, and this was in accordance with our West Virginia State Code. Again, if you don't mind, inspect this and review this. I will note there were no significant findings by the auditor, but the segregation of duties, which is something that we get every year, it's not unusual for municipalities of our size being smaller, to have this, and it's recognized by the state auditor as an issue. But of course, from an audit perspective, they do have to put that in there. But it's not significant, and we do our best to try to segregate our duties with the staff that we have. As with every time we've had an audit, Teacher Bartlett would like to know if council is interested in setting up an exit conference. So I guess at this time, if council's interested in an exit conference, to let me know, and I'll set that up with our auditor next month or so.
What's your pleasure here, folks? Do we need an exit conference, or are you comfortable with the report, or do you want to take a look at it and see what you think later?
I think, considering the findings are rather minor, that we probably do not need an exit conference.
That's my feeling, but I agree. Pam? Dave?
I haven't reviewed the audit yet, but I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
Well, there's no rush. If you all feel the need to have them come in.
We'll change our mind, we'll.
If we ever have a question, we can ask them to come in anyway. So.
Yeah.
No problems.
And that's all I have. Unless you have questions, just some updates.
Any questions from Michael? Chief Gregory?
A few things to update council on tonight. Just last week, we attended the Head Start Fun Day at the Armory, and you've heard me talk many times how the police department is partners in education with Upshur County Head Start. Each spring they have a fun day, generally located at the Armory. It's a chance for children of Head Start and their families to come out and enjoy the day together and see some of the community services that are there. We were on hand. I know members of the fire department were there as well. Had a cruiser on display, and we were able to hand out bike helmets to each of the children that attended. We fitted them properly for the helmets and made sure that they got a free bike helmet. These bike helmets had been purchased in the past through some grant funding, through the Safe Ways to School grant. Our website, which we've had up and running for a couple years now, just underwent some updates and a few minor changes. So always striving to keep that up to date. You all are probably aware of this. I think it was announced at the last council meeting. The police department does have a vacancy. Officer Morgan LaBerth submitted his resignation a couple weeks ago. So we have met with Police Civil Service and are in the process of accepting applications for that vacancy. The application period will be open until April 5th at the close of business on that day. And once that occurs, we'll reconvene the Civil Service, review the applications, and begin the testing phases at that point. And other than that, the police department's just been very busy with numerous investigations of various types, just really across the board, just keeping everybody hopping. And really, that's all I have, unless there are questions.
Questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
City Engineer Sam Ludlow.
Sanitary Board did meet this afternoon. Probably the major item of discussion was our NPDS permit and appeal. We had been scheduled to have a hearing last week, kind of at the 11th hour. We reached an agreement with DEP, Environmental Review Board, and permits. And the essential points of the agreement are the first, the heavy metals, toxic pollutants, that we had such severe limits on copper and zinc that they relaxed the limits, not a great deal, from 4 micrograms per liter to 8 for copper, which was the one of greatest concern, but enough that we think that we can meet those limits. We have been meeting that limit, so we got relief on that point, adequate to allow us to perform satisfactorily, we hope. And the other point was the oxygen demand parameters, BOD, DO, and ammonia. And they granted us the opportunity to first review their method of determining the limits that they imposed on us, giving us the opportunity to critique that and offer comment on their techniques. And if that doesn't produce anything in our favor, that we would have opportunity to do our own investigation on the river, to present alternative limits to them, and the order settling the appeal states that DEP will be obligated to review the information that we prepare. So those were the two elements that really had the greatest opportunity to impact the need for expensive facilities. And one, we got immediate relief adequate to avoid that kind of effort. And the other point, it really just is a starting point, because now we have to do this evaluation, our own study, which will be, there'll be cost associated with that, and there'll be effort associated with it, but it is an opportunity that we had requested and felt that we needed pretty badly. And when you compare costs, and this might cost us $50,000 to $75,000 to undertake this study, and maybe not, but it could be in that order of magnitude. And you compare that to several $1 million to construct new facilities if we had to deal with the limits that they were imposing on us. The cost doesn't seem so severe. It seems pretty effective. And of course, we could make this investment and find out that they were correct in the assignment of the severe limits, and we still have to do it. but at least we've satisfied ourselves that there was a real need. We also talked about the Weston Road sewer extension. We're moving ahead with that. We've been negotiating with and have selected and reached agreement with an engineering firm, Otesta and Associates, to prepare preliminary engineering documents and plans to allow us to pursue a project out along Porter H from about Red Rock Road out to about where Porter H Tire is located, and to reach over to the south side of Porter H Tire, kind of on both ends of that range, to promote economic development. We're doing this in cooperation with the Upshur County Development Authority. I think it's been a revelation on both of these efforts. We've dealt with a lot of professional people, the attorneys and the expert engineer that participated in the appeal, and then a number of engineering firms that came to seek opportunity to do the work on these jobs. Of the value that's been provided by the crews, the work crews with the sewer department, and everybody is very complimentary of the level of work effort, of construction accomplishment that the sewer department has been able to undertake, both in projects at the plant and the sewer line upgrade and extensions. And when you look at the costs that you deal with these outside firms, you realize that we've been very effective in the things that we've accomplished. We are working on Pocahontas Street storm sewer. We've installed lines, a collector storm sewer up to Ritchie Street on Pocahontas. And we're going to now work and go the other way toward Marion Street. We've been doing a number of repair and maintenance projects at the plant. We reached agreement with the Army National Guard for us to do the short extension for the Armory. And we're planning some electrical repairs at Elias Pump Station. That was really all.
Question for Sam? Thank you, Sam. Water plant, looks like it's Kelly's turn.
My turn, not yet. A lot of it's routine, but I'll just touch on some of the highlights of what we've been trying to accomplish. We had 4 different water leaks in the month of February, 2 of which we did call boil water notices on, which we was able to isolate, and it was 25 customers or less in those boil water notices, which you'll be seeing more of those as we have low pressures or something like that. It's just more or less to get the public aware of what's going on. That way they know that we're trying to make the water safe as possible. We did extend some new line on Florence Street, 215 feet. We had some old 2-inch down there, which also tied in the lumber. So we abandoned 410 feet of galvanized, which we'd had several issues of leaks. So we was able to renew that. And then we're on Florida Street now, moving some meter barrels. The street department's actually doing some more sidewalk work. So they was able to go down further than what they expected. So if they contacted us to see if we could move some of the meter barrels out of the sidewalks, we're trying to accommodate them with the new valving that we put in a few years ago. We're trying to do that in such a way that we don't have to do any more street cuts, because every time you have to move a meter barrel, you lose your valve at the meter, so therefore you go back to the main, which is in the street, do a cut. So the valves is paid for themselves. We've probably got 4 to 5 more to move down to Victoria, where they're going to, well, not Victoria, but Lincoln. And then we'll have that completed. Some on the plant side, there's a health department inspection. It was on the 13th. And Tom and I and Jay sat in on the first part of it, and I'd excused myself, I had some other things to do. But they inspected the plant, everything went well with the plant. Also, we got a good endorsement to go with the plans that Jay had been preparing as far as to replace St. Joe tank. And that's what we were looking for with that, so that all went well. I will just bring to attention, we'll be putting it in the papers too, but hydrant flushing, we'll try to begin it on the 15th of April. Try to get it out as much as we can, that way people's aware if their water's a little discolored, that's what's going on. West Virginia Rural Water Association, they had 2 classes that they'd scheduled at Stockard Youth Center this past week. We actually took advantage of those with the operators at the plant, and I went to one of them on the tanks. That gives us CEHs when we go to renew our license. It's close by, it's easy to get to. It really doesn't cost the city anything for us to travel to it except to go set in on it, which we try to take advantage of that as much as we can. And then the only other thing I was going to report on is we sent 2 gentlemen to WD class. They come back, probably be a week or 2 before we know how they done on the test, which is water distribution license. We try to require anybody that is on the distribution part to acquire that license, the same as the plant requires the plant operator's license. And that's about all I have.
Questions for Kelly or Tom? Thank you, Kelly. City Attorney, Dave McCullough.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of what I'll take up with you will be some wonderful reading of captions of ordinances when we get into your strategic business. The cemetery lease has been prepared. If you're feeling cold, all you got to think about is the mowing contract is ready to be signed. That'll warm you up. The armory lease, as Michael Doss mentioned a little bit ago, there have been a number of drafts that we started way back in October. The purpose of the lease was to establish a proprietary interest for the city so that would make the city eligible to participate in the U.S. Department of Agriculture loan program. So we believe that as a result of that fairly extensive teleconference that we had last week, that the issues have all now been addressed in this latest revised lease. We're just waiting, as Michael mentioned, on counsel for the Guard to give the thumbs up on it. A couple of things that you've had on your plate for a while that I need some instruction from if we're to move it forward. And there's no pressing urgency about this, except as was mentioned by Matt Gregory, you are looking at a new hire with the police department here very soon. The residency requirements for city employees, do we want any requirements at all? If so, are we going to confine it to first responders? If so, what are those standards going to be? I offered some various models up to the council that you might consider if we are to move in that direction. So again, something to think about as we're looking at least one new hire with the police department. The next couple of ordinances that are coming up, the Crossroads ordinance that is going to criminalize some of the activities involving people leaving things just lying out there by the bins. Will probably also address some issues that happen less frequently out at the waste collection garage, but there'll be sort of an all-encompassing kind of a thing that will address all of those issues. I may have something ready as early as the next meeting. And we're still working on the electrical ordinance too. That's one that's been convenient for us to continue to, okay, we'll get to that one next since we've got 2 or 3 new things, but I really would like to get that resolved so that our electrical inspector, Mr. Martini, will continue to be, pleased to be in our good employ. I would observe that relative to the police applications, that last year the statute, which identified who is eligible to be a municipal police officer, was changed. The age forever was age 35. That age has now been moved up to 40. So people between 35 and 40 who previously wouldn't have been are now eligible to apply to be a police officer. Sam Ludlow mentioned the Potesta agreement. I provided some assistance to Mr. Ludlow with that. And the only other thing that will warm everybody up, we're fast approaching that time where the fire department and the Stockbridge Youth Center Board need to identify who they want to honor for the annual Friendly Way Day and Service to Youth Champion celebrations that are the week of Strawberry Festival. That's really coming up a lot faster than what you might think. That's all I have unless you have questions for me. And again, I have several things to take up with you under your new business.
I have a question. You mentioned the electrical inspector with the duties that he's going to have. Recently, a friend of mine had an inspection done, and it was in the county, it wasn't in the city, to a brand-new house that he had constructed and found enough, a half an inch worth of disparities in that construction as far as hazardous fire danger, electrical danger, leaks in the roof, holes where animals and bugs can crawl up from underneath that shouldn't be filled in. What does the city have to do, besides pay an inspector, to come up to a standard building code for the city of Buchanan, where we could take care of these problems before they arise?
Well, Mr. Clemens can jump in anytime he wants, and maybe the mayor has some thoughts too. One of the problems that smaller municipalities such as Buchanan experiences, you have a permitting officer, which is largely Mr. Clemens, but we do not have a field inspector per se. And we do not, I mean, in the perfect world, if you were the size of Morgantown or Charleston or Wheeling or Huntington, you would have a permit officer who would be very adept with what needs to be done from a plumbing perspective. There would be another person that would be completely well-trained with the electrical issues. People that would be well-trained with support, foundation pourings, those kinds of things. So I think Buchanan has done a good job with the limited resources that we've had. I would observe that for the most part, the city's requirements have exceeded what traditionally was done in the county. I don't know if that's the case right now, but over the long haul, we've required more within the corporate limits of Buchanan than what would have been required outside the corporate limits of Buchanan.
Well, we can require, but nobody inspects it, right?
Well, I also note that I fill out a report to the government every year that notes the number of houses that we have constructed. And probably, just off the top of my head, in the last 6 years, we've probably constructed 4 houses inside the city. So one issue is the relative activity. Now, commercial instruction we do differently. Commercial instruction we require to have State Fire Marshal's approval, inspection of plans. We also require the business or service that's constructing that to have it inspected and have it certified by an architect or an engineer that in fact was built to code. But I agree. I mean, I have no problem. I think it's about time that the city does have some sort of inspection arm. I think that's probably going to be an outside person that you hire in and pay on a per inspection basis, because we really have very little activity in terms of new whole house construction. There are additions and outbuildings and things like that, but very little construction. But I would fully agree that it's probably time or past time to have a regular, fully trained inspector or inspectors.
Well, I know the gas company requires an inspection before they complete a hookup. The power company does also. But in order to protect our citizens, if they ever want to do it, and this particularly in Buchanan, but also in the county, and we need maybe to talk to the county commissioners about this problem too. if everyone that builds a house was to pay a $300 fee, that could save them $375 to $400 in getting a professional building inspector to come in and appraise the situation in order to take the person who built the house to court over the mistakes that they have made or just not done. So maybe this is a problem that we should approach the county commission with also, is to help with this. The cities in the county, and basically the counties in the city too, because there's only one municipality. But I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed as far as building codes and everything. I'd be surely disappointed if I built a house in the city and come to find out that everything's okay with electric and the gas, but darn it, the plumbing leaks, the roof leaks, there's no gutters, there's things that should be taken care of that wasn't done. We need an inspection.
I would observe that when we were kicking around a year or so ago, the contractors being up, one of the things that was bandied about that might have been included with that new revenue generating ordinance was that those forthcoming new fees that would have been realized would have been applied to at least a part-time inspector. Mr. Doss looked long and hard at that, but you don't know. The problem with construction, especially new construction, you don't know it's tough to project how much you're going to realize from that. So I don't even know that a year into it that we have necessarily a great handle on what those revenues are going to be. I'd defer to Michael on that. But that could be one means by which there would at least be some funding available to apply to that position if that was the will of the council. But I think it would be a great idea.
Ron, we have talked about this very thing different times in the past, and maybe it's time to shake the dust off of it and take another look at it.
I think we should, Mayor.
Appreciate your comments. Any other questions for Macaulay? Correspondence, we have a request for 5K run for the Band of Brothers at Chapel Hill Church. It's what we've approved in the past. They're running the same route. Entertain a motion to approve that request. Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion, all in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. D2 is a request for an Earth Day 5K run with walk Stockard Youth Center. You have that in your packet. I would entertain a motion to approve that request.
So moved.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Same players, okay.
I was waiting for David, I think he went to sleep.
There's any discussion on this matter? All in favor of the request signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. In your packet, you also have a response from Newtown, Connecticut, a thank you response to our letter. It was in the form of a postcard. I gave you a copy. I gave the original to Michael Livison.
Good deal.
Okay. It brings us to our consent agenda. That's the minutes of the regular meeting of March 7th. Approval of building and wiring permits, approval of payment of the bills, and approval of a vendor request from Upshur Foods. All that's need to know is included there. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right. Get some new players in. All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We've done G1. Dave, we'll hear from you again.
Mayor, I've got a series of ordinances. This is the second reading of ordinance number 371. This pertains to the National Guard Readiness Center. Ordinance 371, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition and construction and equipping of a conference center as part of a West Virginia Armory National Guard Readiness Center, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, by the City of Buchanan Building Commission, authorizing and the leasing of such facilities by City of Buchanan Building Commission to the City of Buchanan, approving the sale, issuance, and delivery of not to exceed $765,000 lease revenue bonds, Series 2013A, by the City of Buchanan Building Commission, to provide funds to finance a portion of the costs of such acquisition and construction and related costs and expenses, prescribing the forms and authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement and lease and other instruments, and authorizing and approving other documents and matters relating to the terms and security of such bonds, and providing for certain other matters in connection therewith. You actually took this up on first reading at the meeting that I was not in attendance at 2 weeks ago. So this would be the second and final reading. It's my recommendation that the council consider and endorse this evening ordinance 371. I'm sorry. Losing my numbers.
Second but not final reading.
Was there a third? I thought the building commission had 3 readings.
It's going to coincide with the building commission. It's a matter of
Oh, they've
procedure.
added a third one to it unnecessarily? Okay, that's fine.
So on the second reading, motion to approve ordinance number 371.
So
Have a
moved.
motion? Second. And seconded. Further discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. David?
Mayor, I'd just note that section 15 actually provides for only 2 readings by the council, and it's effective on the
Well,
second.
we may take another look at it, just sort of with another one.
Just want to be sure about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, good deal. Are you ready for me to roll on?
Roll.
All right, the next one is ordinance number 372, and this is something that we first brought up 2 meetings, maybe 3 meetings ago. And there was a draft, and I tried to include as many of the comments and concerns in some revisited language, revised language, most particularly the thoughts of our municipal court judge, since he's the guy that's going to have to deal with these things more than the rest of us. It's easy to pass an ordinance, and then it becomes something that you have to try to enforce. This is ordinance number 372 of the city of Buchanan. An ordinance, 1, prohibiting smoking and the use of all other tobacco products in all city-owned parks and recreational facilities, and 2, establishing penalties for persons violating the provisions of this ordinance. Let me go through the whereas paragraphs quickly. Whereas the United States Surgeon General and other authoritative public health authorities have determined that involuntary inhalation of tobacco smoke, 1, is a cause of numerous diseases in healthy non-smokers, 2, is a major contributor to air pollution, 3, places children, unborn children and pregnant women, elderly people, and individuals with cardiovascular and/or respiratory diseases at special risk. 4, is a trigger for acute episodes of respiratory distress and myocardial infarction. 5, increases the lifetime exposure to carcinogenic tobacco smoke of both smokers and non-smokers. 6, burdens the healthcare system by increasing the number and frequency of required hospital admissions and emergency visits, thereby increasing the public and private expenditures required for the treatment. 7, reduces the life expectancy of persons consistently exposed to secondary smoke. And 8, causes substantial losses in productivity through smoking-related absences from work and school. And whereas the council of the city of Buchanan believes that smoking and the use of other tobacco products occurring in the proximity of children and adults participating in or attending outdoor activities as spectators at city-owned parks and other recreational facilities is harmful to participant and spectator health and is often offensive to those persons using such facilities. And whereas the city of Buchanan is authorized to create and sustain a tobacco-free environment through adoption of a no smoking and tobacco-free policy within all parks and other outdoor recreational facilities owned by the city. And whereas the city of Buchanan believes parents, leaders, and officials involved in recreation are role models for youth and should have a positive impact upon the lifestyle choices youth make. And whereas the tobacco industry often advertises at and/or sponsors recreational events to foster a connection between tobacco use and recreation. And whereas cigarettes and other tobacco products once consumed in public places are often discarded on the ground, resulting in 1, additional maintenance expenses, 2, diminution of the attractiveness of the city's parks and other recreational facilities, and 3, risks posed to young children due to ingestion of the discarded products. And then there are a series of whereases, 6 all told, that are essentially lifted right out of Chapter 8, Article 12, Section 5, specifically paragraphs 13, 19, 23, 44, 48, and 15, all of which provide for those empowerments given to municipalities such as our own to look after people's safety, welfare, those kinds of matters. The next to last whereas paragraph is the one that grants the city the opportunity to create penalties for certain activities. So there would be penalties with this activity. And then to the final whereas, the council of the city of Buchanan has determined that the prohibition of tobacco use at the city's parks and recreational facilities serves to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Buchanan. The findings that follow largely track the whereas paragraph, so that's Article 1. Article 2, there are but 3 definitions: smokeless tobacco, smoking, and tobacco products. Article 3, the prohibited activities. Smoking or the use of any tobacco product shall be prohibited in the following outdoor public places within the corporate limits of the city of Buchanan, Upshur County, West Virginia. And there are 5 of them. The 5th one is a new one that was added at the urging of Municipal Court Judge Randy Levine. All municipally owned or operated parks and outdoor recreational facilities, including but not limited to the Poundstone Memorial River Trail, Jawbone Park, the City Park on Park Street, and the North Buchanan Park. 2, upon the grounds of the city's Stockert Youth Center. 3, upon the grounds of the city's Gibson Memorial Library. 4, all areas where fairs and festivals are conducted, including but not limited to the annual West Virginia Strawberry Festival and Festival Fridays at Jawbone Park. And 5, within all inside or interior places that constitute accessory uses to any of the foregoing 1 through 4, including but not limited to restrooms, fully or partially enclosed pavilions, sheds, outbuildings, etc. Article 4, the penalties provision. Any person found guilty before the municipal court of the city of Buchanan of violating any provision of this ordinance, as defined herein, shall be deemed to be guilty of a misdemeanor offense and shall be punished by a fine as follows: $50 for the first offense within a 24-month period, $100 for a second offense within a 24-month period, $200 for a third offense within a 24-month period, $400 for a fourth offense within a 24-month period, and $500 for a fifth and each subsequent offense within a 24-month period. Statutorily, the maximum fine that can be handed out by the municipal court is a $500 fine, so that's the reason that $500 is the maximum. Article 5 is our stock standard severability article. The effective date, Article 6. If you approve this on first reading this evening and on second reading at the April 4 meeting, 30 days thereafter, which is May 4th, would result in the ordinance's effectuation. It's my recommendation that you take up on first reading Ordinance 372 of the City of Buchanan.
Motion to...
I have a question. Part B under definitions. As I said once before when we were discussing this, that the part that considers the use of an electronic cigarette which creates a vapor in any manner or form, etc., etc. As I understand now, as I understood then, that the electronic cigarette is a device that is supposed to help a person cease smoking. Do we really want to prevent something that perhaps was helping somebody in a medical sense to quit a nasty habit like this? And second, I'm not so sure that anyone's going to report this directly to the police that somebody is smoking, as was suggested before, that including this might help people from filing a false report of somebody seen smoking. I think that the officers themselves are going to have to see somebody smoking in order to enforce most of this ordinance. But I really don't think that the inclusion of a device that is meant to help people quit smoking should be included in this ordinance.
Mr. Pugh, the
Let me adjust for a point of order here. I think we need to get a motion on the table.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 372, the City of Buchanan.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Now we can
Now
discuss.
my comments as stated.
I'm not speaking on behalf of the proponents. Joyce Harris Thacker is here. She could tell you as well or better than me. But as I understand, and this is a form ordinance that we have redesigned for our purposes, but we're not reinventing a wheel there. This is sort of stock stuff that counties and cities that have adopted this all over the state have used language similar to this. The thinking is, as I understand it, on behalf of the advocates and proponents of park-free smoking, are twofold. First is the secondhand smoke is not good for anyone.
Right, I understand.
And secondly, children mimic what they see, and whether a person is smoking a cigarette that's the most nicotine that you could ever have in a cigarette, or whether it's an electronic cigarette, that behavior is mimicked, and I think that's where they're coming from with that.
I also think banning electronic cigarettes would help clarify the situation in terms of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. I mean, if anybody's smoking anything is probably
The only thing in an
confuse the
electronic
issue.
cigarette is vapor, water vapor. That's the only thing. Now, you're going to determine that water vapor is harmful to a person just
Yeah,
like
that's
cigarette
not-
smoke?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's,
I'm saying if you're standing back looking at it across the park, how am I going to tell which it is? So let's ban them both so we don't have false claims here.
I just have a feeling that if anybody's going to contest this in a court, they're going to contest that we are banning an item that is designed to help people cease to smoke. And I don't think that's what we're actually doing. I think we're trying to prohibit smoking, secondhand smoke, not secondhand water vapor from a harmless piece of plastic.
How many readings does this require, David?
Two.
I mean, I think we ought to have some individuals research what Ron is suggesting in respect to are there other municipalities that are asking that kind of question. So, you know, I think the intent is that we want to get people to observe and have a nice free zone for people to enjoy their recreation and park activities.
Well,
I don't disagree with what you're saying, Ron. I don't agree. I don't know enough about it from that
I
standpoint
understand.
to make a comment.
The matter has been thoroughly researched. It's up to this council to establish what you want to put in
What's
it.
appropriate.
You could extract, if you wanted to, the smokeless tobacco products, if you wanted to. You could confine it to just smoking, and that's the fact of it. So the constraints, I asked 4 weeks ago for input from the council, and there were a couple of comments made at the meeting. I spoke with a number of council folks after that who supported the full-blown thing the way it was before. And then I added some language at the urging of Municipal Court Judge Randy Levine. But it's up to the council to establish what's going to be in this ordinance, not me. But the matter has been thoroughly researched. This is the ordinance that the communities that have acted upon it, this is what a majority of the communities in West Virginia are doing. You don't have to do what everybody else does, but this is in fact what counties and cities all over West Virginia are adopting.
David, I have another, if we can move on to another question, is when you're talking about the Strawberry Festival and the, I assume you're talking about the rides and the so forth, that whole area will be tobacco-free.
Yes, sir. That's what this would accomplish.
What about the nights we shut down Main Street on Friday and Saturday night, and then like we had the antique car, old classic car show?
Absolutely.
Do we need to put that in the ordinance at any other time you shut down Main Street or observe some kind of holiday?
Well, number 4 says all areas where fairs and festivals are conducted, included but not limited to the festival. The Festival Fridays at Jawbone Park.
That would encompass all of those things. Absolutely.
My only concern about the whole thing is the enforcement of it.
The enforcement's going to be just
It's going to be a bear. And so.
The enforcement may be tough, but at least we have the ordinance and are able to enforce it if they need be. That's why I like the enforcement. I'm all for banning the smoking part. That would also include, as I get it, the whole complete parade route, the Strawberry Festival, right?
I believe it would, Mr. Pugh.
Yeah.
To how far back to a piece of property? That's the question.
See,
this is public. This is public property.
Public property, which would be the
Public
sidewalks.
property only. And at times, streets, parking lots, sidewalks can become part of what would be part of a fair or a festival, absolutely. Not all the time, but during those activities, it would be. And you think about it, the purpose is to protect the people from secondhand smoke. And you normally don't have very many people on a parking lot. Exactly. That's the prime time to protect it.
Is the little triangular park included in this? It isn't, is it?
All parks.
All parks.
All parks, including but not limited to.
Okay. Well, perhaps that park should be added along with the other city-owned parks that we've mentioned. Because during the festival, people that sit there and watch the parade, all the way up and down almost to Kanawha Street, watching the parade there's a lot of smoking going on there. It actually makes one uncomfortable being around the smoke, as you know, especially when you're trying to enjoy a parade like that. Now, if you're at a boxing match or something like that, it may be a little bit different, because it's a different type of atmosphere. But this is...
I think we're going to have to invest in some well-crafted signage.
Signage, absolutely.
That's going to be the major means of enforcement.
Do you have signs, Joyce?
We have park
Signs
signs that I've brought.
Joyce forgot to take back one.
Yeah, I need.
You ready for the question on the first reading of
No, I've
ordinance
got one more
372?
question. I got one more question. That's concerning penalties. These penalties are set in stone as definite. The first one shall be 50, not quoted as saying no more than 50 or something like that. So there's no leeway given to the judge. He has to charge the penalties that are here and cannot say that $500 fine can be $300 or anything like that. Is that
Yes,
correct?
in this instance, our municipal court judge would rather not be empowered with discretion.
This includes the public safety complex too, the parking lot?
Well, no, it would not include the public safety complex. Public safety complex is ordinarily not a site for fair or festival activities. You could ban, as I mentioned last time, that we talked about this, you could ban smoking in all public places throughout the corporate limits of Buchanan, including all workplaces, everything that would be owned by the city, all sidewalks, all streets, all parking lots. If you want to go that far, that's up to you guys. I was trying to advance something that other communities have found to be sort of the happy middle ground.
I have a question for Chief Gregory on this too. Enforcement of this particular ordinance, going along with the fact that littering is also against the law in Buchanan. Now, if you see somebody smoking a cigarette and then puts it out and throws it on the ground, you're going to charge him with both? Or you're going to charge him with this one or the lesser of one?
I mean, that's really the officer's discretion. I mean, they have the authority to elect to do both. The littering statute specifically states cigarette butts. So, that's always available to the officer. However, they elect to use discretion in a lot of instances, so that would certainly be a factor as well, given the circumstances.
Mayor, could I ask one question? Do you mind? I'm just wondering about the 24-month rule. Is that just an ordinance in general that most cities use, or is that a little excessive, not excessive, average?
I think I pulled that language, I can't remember if it was out of the Clarksburg ordinance or out of the Marshall County more comprehensive ordinance. Generally speaking, with citational offenses such as this, same thing with driving, your record is expunged after a 2-year period. It's like points toward your license kind of a thing. So.
Thank you.
And on our records, we don't keep things forever here. So somebody had problems in 2013 and now 20 years down the road, this ordinance is still in effect. Maybe it will be. We might not have things to show that it was a first offense or a second offense way back in 2013. We're trying to get rid of paper instead of saving it.
Thank you.
Call for question.
Question's been called. All in favor of the passage for the approval of ordinance number 372 on first reading, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We'll lay this over to the second reading. G4.
All right, Mayor, ordinance number 373 of the City of Buchanan, and ordinance 1, increasing previous rates and charges and amending administrative rules and regulations, policy enactments, resolutions, and/or ordinances of the City of Buchanan respecting the operation of all municipally owned cemeteries. 2, amending ordinance number 319 of the City of Buchanan. And 3, reaffirming the city's administrative rules and regulations respecting the city's operation of its municipally owned cemeteries. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 8, Article 12, Section 5, subsection 42 of the West Virginia Code as amended, every West Virginia municipality and the governing body thereof shall have plenary power and authority therein by ordinance or resolution as the case may require, and by appropriate action thereon, quote, to acquire by purchase, condemnation, or otherwise, land within or near the corporate limits of the municipality for providing and maintaining proper places for the burial of the dead, and to maintain and operate the same and regulate interments therein upon terms and conditions as to price and otherwise as may be determined by the governing body, and in order to carry into effect the authority, the governing body may acquire any cemetery or cemeteries already established, end of quote. And whereas the City of Buchanan has in fact owned and operated cemeteries within or near the corporate limits of Buchanan since 1928, and the city has previously established and on occasion revised terms and conditions as to price and otherwise respecting its cemetery operations pursuant to the adoption of various administrative rules and regulations, policy enactments, resolutions, and/or ordinances as administered formally by the now abolished Cemetery Board, but since 1993 by the current Consolidated Public Works Board, said cemetery rates and charges always being approved by the City Council prior to implementation. And whereas the Consolidated Public Works Board and City Council have not implemented any cemetery operation rate or charge increases since October 2005, and whereas the city's cost of operating its cemeteries has increased substantially since October 2005, when the city last increased the fees charged respecting the city's cemetery operations, and whereas the city's opportunity to maintain its cemetery operations at a high level are contingent upon the city's receipt of sufficient revenues realized from collection of cemetery rates and charges, and whereas current revenues realized from the rates and charges are insufficient to continue to operate the city's cemeteries at the high level to which the citizenry of Buchanan expects and has become accustomed, and whereas the city's Consolidated Public Works Board has investigated and analyzed various rates and charges imposed by similarly situated cemetery operations in the North Central West Virginia region, and the board has concluded that increases in the city's current cemetery rates and charges are appropriate, and upon approval and implementation by the council, said rates and charges shall be competitive with those rates and charges currently imposed by other cemeteries in the North Central West Virginia region. And whereas the Consolidated Public Works Board of the City of Buchanan formally resolved during the board's regularly scheduled meeting of February 28, 2013, to recommend to the City Council that the city increase its rates and charges for its cemetery operations pursuant to the rate and charge schedule which is hereinafter described and set forth pursuant to Article 2 hereof, said recommendations being set forth in that certain report dated January 25, 2013, and whereas the Council of the City of Buchanan now deems the increased rates and charges proposed by the Consolidated Public Works Board of the City of Buchanan respecting the operation of the city cemeteries, and as said rates and charges are set forth in the board's report dated January 25, 2013, and further which rates and charges are described and set forth to Article 2 hereof to be fair and reasonable, and whereas the Council of the City of Buchanan further desires to reaffirm and endorse all other current rules and regulations for municipal cemeteries operated by the Consolidated Public Works Board of the City of Buchanan, and to deem the same as remaining in full force and legal effect, except for those provisions which are expressly amended pursuant to the provisions hereof, and whereas the statutory provisions of Chapter 8, Article 11, Section 3, Subsection 1 of the West Virginia Code as amended, specifically provide that the collection of fees of any kind by a municipality shall be set by ordinance. And finally, whereas the Council of the City of Buchanan desires in all respects to comply with the statutes of the state of West Virginia insofar as the establishment of the proposed increases in cemetery operations, rates, and charges is concerned, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the council of the city of Buchanan as follows. The findings that follow essentially track the whereas paragraphs that I just read to you. Article 2 are the actual current and proposed increase rates. 8 of the 10 items listed have for a long time have been things that the city has charged for. Let me go over those real quickly. Purchase of a cemetery lot per space. Right now it's $500. The board has proposed going to $800. Grave opening and closing on non-holidays, that is weekdays. $400 is the current charge. The board has proposed that that be doubled to $800. Grave opening and closing on weekends and holidays. It's currently $600. The proposal is to take it to $1,000. Infant grave opening and closing, non-holidays, that is weekdays, it's currently $150. The proposal is to take it to $400. Infant grave opening and closing on weekends and holidays, it's currently $200. The board has proposed to take it to $500. Interment of cremated remains or partial remains, it's currently $75. The proposal is to take it to $200. Interment of cremated remains or partial remains, it's currently $100 on holidays and weekends. The proposal is to take it to $350. Supervision of proper placement of lot markers and foot or headstones. The city currently charges $20 for that. The board has proposed that it go to $100. Disinterment, which is something that has not been on our schedule, but is on the schedule of some of our sister cities, including Bridgeport and I believe Elkins, is there is no charge for that right now. The proposal is to take that amount to $1,600. Disinterment includes reinterment as well. Deed transfer, there is no charge for preparation of cemetery deeds. The proposal is to start charging $100 for that. Subject to the note 3 at the bottom, this is a base fee for a simple deed or deed transfer. However, in more complex instances, any additional legal research or title work shall be determined on a case-by-case basis, with the fee to be established by the city administrator. Article 3 is just reaffirms the previous cemetery administrative rules and regulations. Article 4 makes specific reference to additional administrative rules and regulations of the city's Consolidated Public Works Board. For instance, there are actually rules and regulations that are established annually each time we enter into a new contract with our mower at the cemetery. And then Article 5 is the effective date, same as the last ordinance that I read to you. This would be a 2-reading ordinance, the first one this evening, the next one on April 4th. 30 days thereafter, by state statute and our city charter, the ordinance could be effected on May 4, 2013. It's my recommendation that you consider on first reading this evening ordinance 373 of the city of Buchanan.
Motion.
I move we consider on first reading ordinance 373 of the city of Buchanan pertaining to the cemetery increases.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I would say to you that the rates you're looking at might seem to be a little bit of a jump. But in the last year, the revenues for the cemetery did not pay for the mowing. Did not pay for the mowing, much less anything else. So this is something that we really need to do.
Well, I think it's important to note, Kenny, that this is one of those areas that the city is going to be looking at, for a long, long, long time, because the probability is very few years will we have enough revenue stream based on even these rates to take care of the mowing and the other expenses out there.
Yeah, I think we need to start laying away some money there. I've been saying this to the Consolidated Board and others that you could maybe make an estimate, but at some point in time, every grave is going to be sold, every grave is going to be occupied, and every marker's going to be placed. And we still will be responsible for the mowing of that cemetery. So we need to start putting some money away, and we need to be a little more aggressive with it. So that's
There's one thing I would like to say. It's been 7 years since we had a rate.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for the council to visit this every 2 to 3 years, so it wouldn't be such a big jump for.
I think you'll start seeing that.
It's a black hole.
We need to keep up to date on this.
The other thing I'd note, spent some time out there doing some research for the Historic Society. And you may go out there, and up particularly in the northern part of the cemetery, you see large empty fields. And you think, gee, there's all kinds of space up there. Those are just, it's a huge empty area up towards the access road that goes back to the sewer plant and back in that direction. Those are all graves. The markers are actually almost completely covered over by grass. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of graves up there that were moved from the old Baptist cemetery. So there isn't near as much land as there might appear to be for future graves. It's pretty well full in many portions of that cemetery. There's not a lot of room for growth.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Anybody else? Comments, Ron?
Is it proper to discuss the PERS stuff for board members at this time? Or should that be an item for executive session?
Oh, I think it'd be an item for public discussion.
Then I would like to discuss that right now.
Okay.
Mr. McCauley has said that we've got a letter from the state stating that they're going to give back and not allow any more board members to be a part of the PERS system. They're going to refund the premiums paid in the past. Is that correct?
I've not been apprised about that. if that's the
Would
case.
somebody tell me what the whole story is then on this?
Yeah, that there was inquiry made by the State Retirement Board with the eligibility of our board members, and that's the extent of their inquiry at this juncture. It concerns 6 board members, the longest serving of which commenced service, I believe, in 1979, January, February of 79, so going on 35 years. The city has made contributions on behalf of these board members to the state retirement system for that entire period of time. Some just a couple of years, some for pushing 35 years. City Hall was contacted about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, within the last 2 months, to determine who these people were. Amby Jenkins, our assistant city recorder, treasurer, went back into her files and found the commencement dates of all of these people, correspondence that had been generated between the city and the retirement board over the years. These individuals receive an annual statement showing what their projected payment will be at such time as they retire and begin to want to receive their payments. There was some specific inquiry about board members made, I want to say 1994, 95 by the retirement board. We provided documents to the state retirement board at that time. We're assured that there were no issues relative to these individuals' participation. For the last, since 94, 95, 18, 19 years, the city's continued to contribute on behalf of those board members. And now all of a sudden, here in early 2013, it's an issue again. And we've been dealing with clerical people with the State Retirement Board, not attorneys representing the state of West Virginia, but clerical people who are on a mission to expunge as many doubtful participants as they can. They assured me during several telephone discussions with these representatives that they're not picking on Buchanan, they're doing this statewide. With state employees as well as municipal and county employees. The position which the city has taken up to this juncture is that there seems to be some essential unfairness in having collected monies that have been used by the state retirement system to make payments to other retirees during that period, almost 35 years worth in the one instance. And now, after all of those years of contribution, and people may be counting on a little something when they retire, to have these actions being taken by a state agency in what I believe is a very arbitrary fashion to disengage those entitlements and those benefits. So that's where we are with it. There's been no further, the state has not taken a position, at least one of absolute nature, that they are going to disqualify these participants. I hope they don't. I have mentioned in the letter that we sent that I read to council a couple of meetings ago that I hope that there would be some legal action taken on the part of those participants to try to assure that they would receive those benefits.
But at this point, they've only asked us for information,
That's
which
correct.
we have provided.
We have provided the information.
And we haven't heard anything further.
That's correct. And again, this type of inquiry is not limited to the city of Buchanan. They're doing this statewide with all municipalities. There apparently are people who have previously been enrolled in the program, who were very part-time employees, like our board members are, who are coming under greater scrutiny by the board right now than full-time participants.
When is the last time that we appointed a board member that they chose to participate?
I believe Mr. Fry with the sanitary board a year or two ago, 2011-ish maybe. It's been within the last 2 years. Yeah. Now, if the state wants to, one of the suggestions I made to these representatives, and look, this is the way you have construed your rules and regulations and the state statute up to this point. If you want to disqualify people in the future, enact something that will, from that point forward, disqualify people from participating. But don't go back to folks that have been, payments have been made on their behalf for decades, and then all of a sudden say, no, we're not gonna pay you now. That just seems to me to be fundamentally unfair.
I want to throw something else in that I think I'm correct on this. And first of all, we're not making any comments about any specific individual. People that have served on these boards, we appreciate what they've done and so forth. But my understanding is that there are some issues where if let's say you served on one of these boards at a nominal amount of money for years and years and years, and for some reason or another, you're fortunate enough to get a part-time position, half-time, or full-time position at one of the organizations, that based on a retirement system today, the state retirement system, again, I think I'm right, I may be wrong, but you can let me know, David, that when a person retires, that the highest average salary the last 3 out of 5 years, you multiply that times the length of service for what you've been doing with the PERS program. And individuals that have served on boards at a very nominal fee, those years of service will count in regard to their future retirement. And I think this is a discussion that, I was sort of shocked when you read that letter 2 council meetings ago, because I was sort of shocked that persons that are receiving a nominal fee for being a board member, and maybe it's not so nominal anymore, but I don't think that's what the retirement plans are for our state employees. And I think that we as a country, we as a state, we as a city, we as a county, there are a lot of things that were being done in the past that may look appropriate at the time, but we got to really start thinking about, is that the way to do things in the future? I don't want to penalize anybody that's been in the system, okay? Although I do think from a logical standpoint, if you only have an employee for 4 or 5 years in full-time or half-time, but they've had 20 or 25 years experience in one of these committees, the state ought to do something in regard to that. It doesn't make sense to allow them to get all those years of length of service. But then I started thinking about some other issues I feel more comfortable talking about in the executive session rather than a public session right now, because I just think it has regard to personnel and potential litigation and so forth. But these are the kind of discussions that this council needs to have with you, David, as city attorney, and Michael as our treasurer, that what are we doing today that doesn't make sense today, maybe it did 40, 50, 30 years ago. So, you know, Ron, I thank you for bringing this up, because I was going to bring it up in executive session, but I wasn't going to do it tonight. I thought about it, but Kenny's got to practice for cantata, so I wanted to make the meeting as fast as possible. I was trying to be a good guy, Kenny. But I think these are issues that we have to really take a look at, and I didn't realize any of our board members were getting part of the state employment plan. You know, I think it's wrong, but I also tend to agree with you, David, that they shouldn't just zap it retroactively to take them out of the system. But I do think I would be unhappy if somebody got a half-time job or a full-time job for 3 or 4 years and been one of these nominal fee board members for 30 years and got a retirement plan. Our retirement plan, defined benefit plan, is ridiculous as it is anyway. And I've always said that since I've been on this council. I don't want to impact the current employees, because that would not be fair. They're in the assumption that they're doing something and they're getting paid a compensation and what the plan is and so forth. But actuarially, you know, we're always going to be at the mercy of the state when they come up here and say, okay, next year you're going to have to pay 20% into the state retirement plan, because people are getting older. It's the same problem that the Entitlement Society has with Social Security. I taught college 40 years ago, University of Dayton, in a little graduate program, and I taught a class that life expectancy at that time was, I think, 64 years for a male. The average male received 20 months of Social Security benefits. Now the average age is 75, and we haven't adjusted our society to deal with those kind of things. So I agree with what Ron's saying, Dave, I agree with what you're saying, but it's something we got to deal with and address at some point in time.
I do think we need to discuss it further, and if the state doesn't prohibit it, perhaps we should not allow our board members in the future to participate in the system, because it just is a wrong thing to do. And if everything in our country that's wrong, people say it's wrong, it's not going to start fixing it from the top up. It has to start and work from the bottom and go up instead of the top down. And this is one area where we could, by prohibiting anything like this from happening again in our city, at least.
Let me say just one other thing. I respectfully disagree with you. When this system was created by the state of West Virginia back in the 1950s, our early on board members started out, some of them made $10 a month, others made $25 a month. One of the reasons that those fees were so small, that this extra benefit was extended, was because the cities like Buchanan weren't in a position financially to pay any more than that. So there was just this little nominal sum given, and the carrot that was extended to these people, many of whom receive benefits today based upon those years of service, was, we're going to put you in the state retirement system. It doesn't cost hardly anything to do that, but someday, if you end up with a state job, the state of West Virginia says those years of service will count toward your ultimate retirement. So it could turn into something good for you. That's the way it was presented by the state. That's the way it has always been presented by this city. Now, Martin Niemöller was a guy at the height of the Nazi occupation. I'm a historian, I got to throw this out. His famous saying was, first they came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, so I did nothing. Then they came for the Jesuits, but I wasn't a Jesuit, so I did nothing. I see this as being a progressive tactic by the state of West Virginia. I believe that they may have mismanaged their state retirement system, and now they're going to shake down some borderline participants, even though they've been participating in the system for 30 or 40 years. Who are they going to come for next?
Well,
who are they going to come for next?
I couldn't disagree with you more, David, on that kind of an argument. And when they did that 40 or 50 years ago, things are much different today. I'm not saying you go and retroactively take these people out of the system now. I said that very clearly. Okay, but if we don't start making some changes on how we do things at the city or the county or the state or the federal government, we're all going to be in deep trouble. I mean, if you want to talk about Nazism, let's talk about you can't smoke in the city parks. I mean, some people are going to take a look at that. So, I mean, I want to have a rational discussion. We can disagree, but, I mean, I'm even having trouble, again, I like to go in the executive session because I don't want people to misunderstand publicly what we're saying. But we need to take a rational look at what we're looking at long-term financially. There are unintended consequences of what you said 50 years ago they did. And it doesn't make any sense to give a board member today that's going to start working now to allow them in the state retirement plan. The state retirement plan is for our employees, not for our board members.
And most state retirement plans require you to be at least a half-time, if not a full-time, worker in order. So how do you determine a board member that comes to an hour a meeting once, twice a month as being a full-time employee? You can't do that, David. It's not a possibility. We argued that back years ago with county commissioners, that they were not full-time employees, but they had the lobby and they won.
There are a whole lot of folks that have worked for the city of Buchanan that are receiving those benefits right now.
I've got no problem with those people.
We're not saying take those away.
No problem with those people at all. It's future.
Oh, we're in 100% entire agreement then.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I'm
what we
talking
said.
about trying to protect people that did a lot of stuff for the city at very nominal compensation for a substantial part of that period of time, who are now being told that those years of participating, they're not going to honor it now.
I don't think it was the right thing to do back then. I don't think it's the right thing to do now, but I will not take away what they have already been given.
Yeah, I think you
That's
misunderstood.
what the state said.
Well, I disagree with what the state,
Yeah. Well, that's the question. I don't think it's a
and
question.
I think the state has has undoubtedly messed everybody over that's in the PERS and the PEIA programs in the state of West Virginia. To start with, they neglected to pay the insurance and the health premiums of our employees, wanting the teachers' retirement, wanting the elected officials' retirement to take over and make up for what they did not put in themselves to the legislature. I've got not a lot of faith in the state of West Virginia's legislation or most of the government officials. But when we can do something here on a local level that might affect somebody in the future, I think we should start here to work on it.
Need term limits, David. I mean, that would help resolve a lot of some of
term
these
limits would
issues
help.
and more logical discussion. But
Keep waiting, Dave.
Well, this is my last term. I'm not running again.
I get that right?
Yeah, I put it right. But you misunderstood me. I don't want to penalize anybody that's currently in the system now. That's not that's where I'm coming from.
But the state does.
Well, the state's wrong, and they've been wrong in doing a lot of things, and they got.
But I think that's the
They got the
question.
mess to begin with. But we can do something here locally for the future, I think, that's important. And there's some issues I want to talk about in executive session, but I want to do it this evening. It's, can be done some other time.
I think if you have any other further correspondence to send to the state, that you should come to council before you send it and let us look it over first, please.
Well, I think Defense of Dave, what was sent, and Michael, that what was sent to the state answered their questions. That's all. I mean, if we, Ronnie, and just to argue with you just a little bit, we're having a good argument here, it seems, that to demand that Michael bring everything to council before he answers a question directed to him as micromanagement. We don't want to get into that.
I don't want to micromanage, and it's not an argument, Mayor, it's a discussion.
Yeah. And I think that.
Well, I like to argue in a case.
Well, that's a good discussion. It's a good argument.
I've got nothing else except have a good week.
That's good. That was a good. Don't need anything else.
Rich, you got anything?
Just note that the latest edition of the city's newsletter went to press yesterday, probably be in the city residences' mailboxes by the middle of next week. It contains a lot of exciting information. Read it. That's all I got.
Pam?
What do we have with the Tucker Street property? What's going to be going in there?
We have an order from Randy and Levine, and I don't remember what the date is on it, but they've promised again to get that cleaned up by a particular date. Randy has talked with.
He's moved his vehicle back on there and it's been parked there for.
Well, I think they took a couple of loads out, but yeah, at least it's all on the ground. We've made some progress there.
Okay, and when can people start doing reservations for the pavilions for the parks?
Last October, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they can come in now.
We changed that, didn't we?
Yeah, they
Okay.
can come in now.
Okay.
Parks don't open until May 1, but
Are the rates the same price?
I believe so, except for maybe Jawbone, but yeah.
David?
I appreciate the discussion that we just had with David and Ron and the others. I think I made the comment about term limits for elected officials. I think we really need that in this country. It's very important. The news media ought to really address that as one of the real priorities I think we have. I think we should have it for the city. I think we should have it for the county. I think it should be also for appointed officials. I mean, appointed people on boards. You know, we need to get fresh and new ideas. And it doesn't help if you have a board member or a city official or elected official rather there for 12 or 15 or 18 years or whatever. So I'm talking about consecutive term limits. I think that's important for us. And at least you ought to sit out one term or whatever. But I appreciate the discussion, and I do have some issues I want to bring up in executive session, but not this evening. It has to do with litigation, potential litigation of employees. Thank you.
As long as we comply with 698-4, we can do that. My comments, I received a phone call from Dalton Cutright, who is on the Health Department board, and he is wanting to resign. And I told him don't do it yet. So I want everybody to know that there's going to be an opening on the Health Department board, and would appreciate if you're interested that you let me know, and we'll see about an appointment.
Is that a paid position?
Is it on
Yeah, right.
Is it on the retirement?
That's the Buchanan Upshur Board of Health.
I believe that's
Board of Health. And Dalton's been on there, Bud Cutright has been on that forever. 30 years. 30 years, and he's wanting to not do that anymore, so I understand that. So if anybody's interested, let us know.
And Kenny, we have a lot of people serving on boards that don't get paid either. I think that's really important.
We have a lot of people serving on boards and committees around that do not get paid, that's right. We had a group here this evening that our building commission, they don't get paid any money. And they're signing papers that will, you know, indebt that building commission to this loan we're taking out for the conference center, $765,000. That's a pretty good thing. Quite a bit to ask someone who volunteers their services. TV cable board, me occasionally. The police and fire civil service boards are not paid. There's a lot of people who serve this city.
Zoning Board of Appeals,
Zoning Board of Appeals,
Historic Landmarks Commission, none of those boards.
Right, they don't get paid. They put in a lot of service and they're not paid. So.
Don't we have an opening Stockford Youth also?
Believe you're right. Believe there is an opening for the Stockford youth.